Final hour Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker. Brian Hayes, Dave Feschuk of the Toronto Star. Don Waddell coming up. Bob Weeks later in the hour. The Jays losing in extra innings today down at Wrigley.
Tough loss, 6-5.
What are you going to do? What are you going to do?
But as Ryan Dempster said yesterday, if you happen to be one of those Jays fans in attendance, is there a better place on the planet to be than Wrigleyville on a Friday afternoon?
I don't think so, because it's 5 o'clock down there. Game's over. Weather looked great. It's brilliant.
Brilliant. Lose, what's it matter?
Yeah, it's brilliant. And Vladdy went hitless today, but obviously prior to today's game, he's been the hottest hitter in baseball. And I had a conversation. I was doing a SportsCenter hit earlier about, Shapiro and Atkins, whether or not they're the right guys to make this decision. And one of the opinions I had, and I would stand by, is when you're talking about a massive commitment, like the rumored 10 years, $300 million,
right?
That's more of an ownership decision in the end than it is like the GM, right? Obviously, the GM has to make an analysis, has to say why it would make sense. This is the player. This is who we believe he is. But when you get to that kind of a commitment, it's so much deeper than wins above replacement and, velocity off the bat and all that. It's making a commitment to now an ambassador for your team for the rest of their lives and for basically the rest of the team's existence. Like Vladdy, if he signs a long-term deal at that kind of money, it's the highest paid player in the history of the team by a mile.
Right.
By a mile. That's about marketing. It's about ticket sales. It's about commitment. It's about loyalty. It's about everything across the board. So ownership, I think, has to be a part of that. Regardless of how you feel about the way Shapiro and Atkins have handled this current roster, and I think most people conclude it just has been a disaster, but a disaster of a year. I will argue, and I did argue, those two guys do know Vladdy better than anybody else.
Yes, that is true.
Like, they have been here for a decade. They know everything there is to know about Vladdy. So even though you may not love the way that they've done their business, but you may not think they deserve to come back and have another kick at the can, I do think you can separate when it comes to their evaluation of Vladdy, because if you bring in new eyes on him, like Brad Treliving. Treliving came in, although Shanahan had been here for a decade. Shanahan knows everything there is to know about Marner, Tavares, Matthews, Nylander, etc. But he has to figure it out.
Well, we still heard Treliving say, I'm going to need some time here.
Still need some time.
Right.
Those guys know Vladdy. They know everything about the guy.
Oh, yeah.
They are actually the guys you'd ask to give you an honest evaluation of what you think you have in the player.
Right.
Who is the guy.
Without a doubt. I mean, they know how great he can be, how tantalizing he can be, how popular he can be, to your point about marketing and promotions and sales and jerseys and tickets. But they also know how maddeningly average he can be at times. And you're thinking about 2022, right? And 2023, and yet 2021 and the back half of 2024, he's been electric, right? 2021 runner-up in the MVP race. 2024, these past 40-something games, outside of an 0-for-5 today, he's been
all world,
the best in the world, basically. Better than Aaron Judge for this little snippet of time, a quarter of a season. So you're right. They know both sides of Vladdy. They know the pros, the cons, the upside, the downside. You do make a good point. As much as this fan base has grown very skeptical of the judgment that lies within the brains of Shapiro and Atkins, they would be the foremost experts on this particular player.
On Vladdy himself.
Yes.
On the field, more importantly, off the field, how he trains, how he operates, how he deals with teammates, the media, everything across the board.
Yeah.
They know everything there is to know about Vladdy. And you need to know everything there is to know if you're going to commit 10 years and $300 million. And I think what's happened here is, presuming he continues at this pace or close to it the rest of this year, and next year he has a good year. Let's say they walk him into free agency. But he's 25 years old. That means he'll be 26 years old when he comes up, which is a staggering number when you think about it. For someone to hit free agency in baseball without any team control, anything, and you're 26 years old.
Got to put in your time, man.
Got to put in your time. If he has a really good rest of the season this year, and next year, let's say he hits 35 home runs, hits 300, OPS around 900, plays 155 games, someone's probably going to give him $300 million.
Oh, yeah.
Like, someone's going to give it to him.
That's the floor.
So the money, like, we get caught up in the money all the time, even though it's not our money. And the money is staggering. It is staggering. Like, this is lottery winning every time you show up at the park.
Yep.
You know, you're getting basically a winning lottery ticket. Go cash that every 2 weeks if you're making $30 million a year or more. But that's what you have to pay to play. You know, it's the same thing going on with like Dak Prescott in Dallas. You're like $60 million for Dak. I know it's crazy, but that's what it is. Yep. Like if it was 55, would that be better?
Right.
Like sure, but it's still $55 million. No one's suggesting he's going to sign for $20 million. So don't get caught up in the number. That's just like you always have to. I find, and I would include myself in this, the fan base, the media, you're always behind the ball when it comes to where the numbers are going. The NBA is a great example of that. $55 million. Jaylen Brown's getting $300 million. Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
That's just the way it goes.
And because we look at the valuations, like Jerry Jones owns a team that's worth $10 billion.
$10 billion.
$10 billion.
That quarterback's going to make $60 million a year. That's what he's going to make.
It's like not that much money for Jerry
For
Jones.
Jerry, it's really not that much.
No.
Yet he's always penny pinching, it seems like. Like he's doing it with CeeDee Lamb right now.
Yeah.
He did it with Ezekiel Elliott back in the day. He's doing it with Dak. Like he can't wait to get into a fight with his best players.
Well, it's a cap league. I mean, it is.
I understand that, but a lot of it seems more like it's cheap.
You're right.
Or it's an ego play by Jerry.
Well,
like
it's always an ego play.
It's always an ego play. But it's like he wants to go to war with these guys, so people are talking about Jerry Jones going to war with these guys.
I think you're right.
Like he handles that team as if they're the Tampa Bay Rays.
Yeah.
And they're the complete opposite, the most valuable franchise on earth, you could argue, the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah. Not Manchester United, not Barcelona, not Real Madrid, not the Yankees.
It's amazing.
Like it's them. And this guy's like, nah, I'm not doing it, man. CeeDee Lamb, who do you think you are?
But he loves it.
I'm not doing it.
He loves being in the middle of the ring as the carnival barker.
Yes, he is.
He has to be at the center of it all, and I think that's what he lives for. Like he's got all the money in the world, but he's got that constant thirst for being in the middle of the storm.
Confrontation.
Yeah.
And speaking, like I find it, I guess I'm more fascinated by Jerry Jones because of how unique he is. That you don't see it, especially in this town. Like the owners, you don't know who's Larry Tannenbaum doesn't just stop and talk to people.
I'll
on
tell
the
you
street.
what, the average person in this town, if they saw the man who owns the Toronto Blue Jays on the street, they wouldn't know who.
Wouldn't have a clue who he is.
No public profile.
No public profile. And Jerry Jones is talking after every single game.
Yeah.
Like they get blown out at home against the Eagles, and he's down there being like, maybe I'll fire the guy.
I'll tell you, man. I'll never forget it. Like, when I was a young reporter, I covered an NFL owners meeting one time. This was way back in the day, and I forget what I was there for. I was doing a story on some issue in pro sports, and Jerry was running a meeting for the media where he was explaining a bunch of rule changes or something. And there were probably 20, 30 reporters in the room, and Jerry running the meeting.
Yeah.
And he was loving it. He was great. He was super high energy, super charismatic, very passionate about what he was talking about. And I will never forget it. Like, I was a young Cub reporter. He didn't know me from Adam. And we're all, the meeting ends. There's a bunch of meetings. We're all going to different meetings. The meeting ends. I'm walking out of the room. He comes up to me. Like, he comes up to me and a couple other guys, and he's like, introduces himself.
Yeah.
Jerry Jones.
Who are you guys?
Oh, you're from Toronto? Oh, he tells me a story about Toronto. Yeah, like, and like that guy works a room, man. But he wants to know. He was looking at every face. Every face mattered to him. He wanted to know who that guy is. Who's that guy? What's he writing? What's he doing? Where's he from? What's he going to write, I wonder?
Interesting guy, man.
It's a different, there's something going on up there that you don't see in the average human being, obviously.
Absolutely. All right, Bob Weeks, later in the hour. Best Bets brought to you by FanDuel later in the hour. Here's the new GM of the Blue Jackets. I think you can still say new GM. It's like Happy New Year's. Do you say that into February? I guess you can. How long can you say the new GM down in Columbus? Here's Don Waddell. Do you have an answer for us, Don? Can we keep calling you the new GM, or are you established down there now?
Well, I'd like to think we had another year before we had to play, like an expansion team. But it's been a whirlwind so far. But what I really enjoyed was that first minute when I was listening to you guys, because I've never been on the NFL Network. It felt like I was learning about the NFL there, so I appreciate that.
Yes, absolutely. We're happy to do that. Jerry Jones stories and Dallas Cowboys stories, and I mean, you obviously deal with the media a fair amount. How do you go about your business in terms of work in a room and knowing kind of who's covering you? Do you put an emphasis on that, kind of knowing, like, let's take Columbus for instance. Do you know everything about the radio stations, the newspapers, the TV networks? How do you handle that?
I don't, to be honest, I don't worry about it too much because I've always taken the position, if you're honest with people, you never have to worry about who you're talking to, because regardless if it's a local or national, obviously you have more contact with the local media than you do national media, but I don't get too concerned about it. To me, I always say, I'm going to tell you straight. If I can tell you what's going on, I'm going to tell you. And if I can't, I'm just going to say, you know what, I got to be quiet on that issue.
Absolutely. That makes sense to me. Well, how about the issue of, the Patrik Laine scenario where there, I believe I read reports that you've given, Patrik and his representatives the green light to call around the league, and if they can find a suitor for his services, then have that suitor give you a shout. Maybe you can work out a deal. Where do things stand with Patrik Laine and the Columbus Blue Jackets?
Yeah, you're 100% correct. This is a different situation than any that I've really dealt with. I've had players that have requested trades, and sometimes you trade them, sometimes you don't. Obviously, I don't know Patrik. I wasn't here last year, and he went into the program 28 games in the year, and he's been very vocal about it way before I got here. That he does not want to play for the Blue Jackets. I think. There's a lot of things that went on in the locker room, and he just doesn't want it. So, this is different because it's harder to bring him back knowing the situation. But saying that might be the option, because, we're into the summer. He's got a high cap hit for 2 years. There's not a lot, I'm talking to teams every day. I got 2 or 3 teams engaged right now, and then we'll see where it goes. But at the end of the day, like I told Andy Scott, his representation, I can try to do it, but if there's not a deal to be made, he's going to have to come back here to camp, and, we'll welcome him back and try to make the best out of the situation.
So, Don, wanted to ask you about the hot topic in hockey circles these days, the St. Louis Blues decision to offer sheet a couple of Edmonton Oilers. That's put the Oilers on a bit of a hot seat, trying to figure out how they're going to either keep these players or let them go in these circumstances. Now, you've been on both sides of the offer sheet equation as a GM, so I was wondering about your reaction when you saw the news that Doug Armstrong and St. Louis had pulled that move on the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah, well, I like it because I was involved in the last 2, so now they can stop talking about us and talk about this one. So I do like that, but It's a tool in the toolbox. It's interesting because, when I was in Carolina, we did the Montreal one, we thought it was revenge. And honestly, I'm not that way. And, we said, we thought this player could really help us. We thought the compensation was what it was, that what we're giving up. So, we talk about how with LTIR, going in the playoffs and how guys create cap space. This is just another tool in the toolbox, and it's not used that much, but when it's used, it can be effective. So I have no problem with it at all. I think it's, again, this is something that's legal in the NHL bylaws and rules. So, I give Doug Armstrong credit that he feels like this is a move that would help his hockey team. Remember, we're all trying to make our team better. Mm-hmm. And he felt that this move would make his team better. And so, hats off to him. Stan walked into it. Stan's got to figure it out now. Stan's a good man, and he will figure it out. So I don't have any bad wishes on Edmonton, but it is a tool that is right at our disposal.
With Don Waddell, have there been any examples of you, trying to get a player to sign an offer sheet where they decided, even though maybe you're going to give them more money than their team was willing to give them, but the player or their agent just said, we're not interested. Does that happen throughout the league?
I don't know how much it happens, but it has happened. I mean, I can tell you because I've been involved with I'll call the agent when it's legal to talk to him. No illegal talk ever happens in our league.
Of course not. Never.
So, when it's legally, I've called a few guys, and they don't have any interest, or let's see how this plays out. We really want to stay where we are. So I've gotten that a few times. I don't know. I can't tell you how much it happens around the league. I know there's some agents that are very proactive about getting out there saying, would you be interested in an offer sheet and that? And, sometimes it makes sense to explore it. And other times you just say, this just doesn't make sense for us. So that's how I would answer that.
Yeah, Don, it's interesting though. There's always this feeling from the media side that this doesn't happen very much because you GMs are so clubby. You're all kind of worried about maybe taking off a guy who might come back at you in a revenge play. And some of you are friends. There's this feeling that, hey, Doug Armstrong did it to the Oilers, but he wouldn't have done it to Kenny Holland because they're close friends. I mean, how much of that comes into it, or can you separate yourself and say, this is just business?
Well, I can't say that you don't think about who you're dealing with, but, at the end of the day, we all are responsible to our owners to try to make the best decisions and put the best team on the ice. So, there's no doubt if somebody's a best friend or a really good friend, they probably think hard about it. But at the end of the day, we're all responsible, and I truly believe all the guys think this way. We're responsible to make your hockey club better. You have to report to somebody, whoever that might be. So if this is what you feel you should do, I don't think it really matters who the GM is of the team, because you're going after somebody that's in a cap situation. Not personally at the GM or whoever, the owner, anything like that. This is Edmonton's in a difficult situation with their cap, and that's why you go after them.
With Don Waddell, the GM and president of hockey operations for the Columbus Blue Jackets. So you hired Dean Evason, and Dean's in there, and we were talking about Patrik Laine, and you said, hey, if we can find a partner and we can make a deal, so be it. If not, we expect you to show up. I'm curious, did you get the indication that Patrik would in fact show up? And if so, how would you expect Dean Evason to handle that, considering, everything that is out there and that's public? I'm sure the media, the fan base is really curious, how much Patrik Laine, again, wants to play for your team. If he is playing for your team, how that's going to work out and how Dean Evason will ultimately decide to play him.
Yeah, obviously with Dean, we talked about this before he got hired, and we spoke about it. It was in my office this morning. We spoke about it for a long time. Dean called him. He's going down the list of the players when he got the job, and he texted me and said, should I call Patrik? I said, sure. He's part of our. Had a great conversation with him. He said it was very positive, and Patrik made it known that he'd still like to go someplace else. So I think to answer your question, we're all aware of the situation, and it'll be up to, the leaders on the team, Dean, myself, if Patrik is back in a training camp. Now, I can't answer for him whether he shows up or not. Mm-hmm. Obviously, he makes 8.7 cap, 9.1 cash, so eventually I think he might, because it's a lot of money. But we would, as far as if he's still a Blue Jacket come training camp, it's our responsibility to try to put him in the best environment, because a couple of things. One is, maybe this trade doesn't happen now, but it can happen at Christmas time. He gets back to where he could be as a goal scorer, all that. Somebody might say, what, that's a good value. Let's go make a deal for him. So, there's still a lot that could play out as we sit here today.
Absolutely. With Don Waddell, in terms of, there's still a number of free agents that are out there. This I find is usually, tryout season. PTOs get signed around now or in the next week or two. Where do you stand on that in Columbus in terms of possibly, offering tryouts to a bunch of kind of older free agents who may still want to play in the league?
Yeah, it's interesting because I have a good list updated daily for me, but we've held off because of the Patrik situation. Mm-hmm. We have 12 forwards. A lot of teams I'm talking about, you're going to probably take some players back In some cases, maybe one, maybe two. So, to go commit to a forward right now and then trade and get two forwards back, I'm not sure that's the fair thing to do. So we have a list, and be honest, we might even be in a position to sign somebody or wait to see who's on waivers. And every day we talk to teams, I got to get this resolved first before we can make that second move.
Absolutely. Well, good luck with it, Don. And, we're only a few weeks away from camp. It's going to be happening quickly. Summer is flying, and the hockey season's right around the corner. So good luck with everything down in Columbus, and I'm sure we'll do it again soon. Thank you for this.
No, absolutely. I appreciate it and appreciate the education on Jerry Jones.
Yes, exactly. Please tell everyone in Columbus our Jerry Jones story. Please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I will definitely pass it on. Thank you.
All right, there's Don Waddell, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Hey, he was loving that Jerry Jones stuff.
Or was he mad he was on hold for so long?
That's possible that he was on hold for a while.
Yeah.
That happens sometimes.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
That's the way the show flows.
Sometimes it happens.
Yeah.
That's like probably the biggest battle Owen I have is he's always like, phone. I'm like, dude, you got to relax. Which is interesting because he does TV a lot, and you've done TV over the years. I've done TV. If there's a show, a news show or whatever that asks you to come on, they'll ask you to be there a half an hour before.
Oh, yeah.
Make sure you're set up. Sit there. We'll get to you in about 15. Get to you, ask you one question, and then say goodbye.
You're right.
But then with us, it's like, hey, he's been on hold for 4 seconds.
Yeah.
You better get him on immediately.
Oh,
and I always look at I'm like, I'm going to finish my thought here, dude.
Get to him.
Yeah.
Bring him on.
Yeah. It's just like, he's like, hey, phone. I'm like, you got to relax. Please relax, man. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
It's going to be all right. But anyway, thanks again to Don Waddell. Yeah, that Patrik Laine situation is going to be interesting. Like you said, he thinks he's going to probably show up because there's a lot of money, a lot of cash.
Yeah.
And if you don't show up, you get fined and you don't get that money.
But you can't be sure with Patrik.
Yes. Valid. But you also, I think what Patrik Laine needs to realize is there's just no suitors out there for him.
Right.
Like you have to play, perform, look like you deserve the money you're getting, and then someone might come calling. But just wanting out at that kind of money, Columbus isn't going to eat money just to get rid of you.
You can't, how could you touch that guy with a 10-foot pole?
I don't see how you could, but based on the way he plays and the inconsistencies, and he's an unreliable player.
That's what I mean.
On the ice.
You just be, if you're the GM and you trade for him thinking, wow, he scored 40 whatever once. Like, we know he's got talent. We can be the team that turns him around. We can be the team that gets the maximum out of Patrik Laine. Like, how long into that pipe dream are you just sitting by? Like, you're going to have your phone in your hand and you're going to get a message. Something's going on with Patrik.
Yeah, that would be what you'd be preparing for, I think.
You'd
right?
have to, right?
Exactly.
Unless you weren't sort of paying attention to what's happened until now. And that's not to say, I hope for the best for Patrik Laine. Like, I'd love to see him prosper. I would love to see him become the guy that everybody thought he could become.
Of course.
It'll be fun to watch. He's an engaging character. He's an
awesome
very
player
human,
too when he's on.
Very human guy, and he's interesting to interact with. But if I had to bet on him becoming that,
I think the ship has sailed now.
Probably sailed.
He's not a young guy anymore. He came into the league. He's been in the league for 8 years.
Maybe he has a maturity kind of renaissance because he's, whatever is the impetus for the light bulb going on. Maybe he kind of realizes that he's been doing it wrong, and
I think that's doubtful.
Right.
Yeah, it's just. Sometimes it's difficult to meet the highest of expectations.
Yeah.
Second overall pick, looked like the next Ovechkin, was unbelievable, good Winnipeg team, and it never materialized. And again, I don't think he's going to reach those heights. Doesn't mean he's not going to play. He's still capable of playing, and he's still making a lot of money. Columbus has got to figure that out. Okay, Bob Weeks coming up on the FedEx Cup, the President's Cup right around the corner as well. How many Canadians could be on that team? Best Bets brought to you by FanDuel, still to come as well. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN Plus. Mailed-in Fridays brought to you by Boston Pizza, Canada's favorite sports bar. BP serving fish bowls and ice cold pints on the patio all summer long. So grab your sunscreen and let's have ourselves a weekend. The Boston Pizza patio is calling. Absolutely.
No doubt.
Absolutely. So the FedEx St. Jude Championship taking place down in Memphis, Tennessee. It looks so hot down there.
Wow.
Like just so outrageously warm.
That's some soupy air.
Tennessee in August is just outrageous. And Denny McCarthy's at 11 under in the clubhouse through 2 rounds. Scotty Scheffler is 9 under for the tournament. And I'm looking for Canadian flags here. Taylor Pendrith, 5 under. Nick Taylor, 4 under.
Yeah.
And then Corey Connors a little bit further down. Mackenzie Hughes further down. Adam Hadwin, I believe he's in there, right? Where's Adam Hadwin?
There, yeah.
I don't see him. But anyway, Canadians are, there he is. Adam Hadwin's +2 in the tournament.
+2.
Okay.
Hughes +1.
And what's interesting is it's also kind of ridiculous is the whole, like the FedEx Cup, the jockeying of position. You know, I was watching on the Golf Channel last night. I think it was Chris Kirk or something who had himself a great round. He had a decent round today. He's in the hunt. Like he had moved up to like 3rd in the FedEx.
Right.
I'm like, really? He went out early, so he's in the clubhouse. You know what I mean? Like it's probably going to fluctuate a little bit. We don't really need to do this the whole time, but the cut line from 70 is down to what, 50 next week,
right.
I believe, and then it goes to 30 at East
right.
Lake for the Tour Championships. So there are a couple of Canadians that have to have big weekends here in order to push their way through.
Yes.
To next week.
But yeah, like watching the projections, it's not particularly compelling.
No,
like
it's not. And especially the first day of the so-called playoffs. The
yeah.
Thursday, like halfway through the round, how things are moving.
Yeah.
I think we need to give it some time.
Guess
here.
what? Scotty Scheffler started at number 1, and he's projected to finish at number 1.
At number 1, yes. I don't think anything will happen the next 2 weeks that will lead to anything but Scotty having a lead in East Lake.
Yes.
All right, here's Bob Weeks, our TSN senior reporter and golf analyst here at, again, TSN. How you doing, Bob? Okay, Bob, you got us?
There you are. Hello.
Hey,
How are you
Bob.
guys?
Oh, good, pal. How are you doing?
I'm hot.
Yes.
It's like it's so steamy here. It's crazy.
Well, we said that prior to having you on that it looks so hot. Like on ESPN.com, they actually have the weather app up like on the leaderboard. It says it's 97 right now, and it's 6:30 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah, it was. At one point, I looked on the weather app, and it was with the humidex at 42 degrees.
Wow.
So yeah, it's as Mac Hughes said, it's a day where you got to wear like 2 or 3 pairs of underwear.
Yeah, you got to grind.
Yep.
You got to grind. So where are the Canadians at in terms of jockeying for positions here? Where Mackenzie Hughes is, he's 1 over for the tournament. Adam Hadwin's 2 over for the tournament. Corey's -1. You've got Taylor Pendrith 4 under. Taylor 4 under. What do the Canadians have to do in order for them to get into next weekend and then beyond?
Well, Pendrith and Connors are pretty much a lock for next week. They're in there. There's not too much worry. They started off sort of like 27 and 30 or 31, so they're pretty good. Hadwin, I thought, was going to be pretty good. He hasn't played all that well. He's sort of in the mid-40s. He should be okay with some decent rounds. And then Nick Taylor and Matt Hughes got a little bit of work to do. Nick is playing the best of them right now. He had a pretty good round. He was at 4 under, and then he dunked the ball on the 18th hole and came up and said, "I'm really hot," and it has nothing to do with the temperature. But I think all with some good play on the weekend, there's still room for them all to move up. So. They collectively they have a lot on their plate. They're all talking about not only this but also President's Cup. And Mac Hughes had the best line of the day. He said, "I wish I didn't care so much." And I think that's what's part of what's going on here is that these guys are so focused on trying to get on that team and trying to show Mike Weir that they have enough in the tank that they can play. That maybe they're just gripping things a little bit too tight.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that. We had Mac on when we were in Hamilton for the RBC Canadian Open and asked him, if you could choose the Olympics or the President's Cup, and he said, like, immediately President's Cup. Like, immediately. He just said, honestly, the Olympics would be cool, but I'm not thinking much about that. It could have been the fact that it was basically determined Nick Taylor was going, and it was either Corey or Adam Hadwin at that point. But Mac made it pretty clear, like, the President's Cup was as high of a priority as anything possibly could outside of individual success, week in, week out on tour.
Every one of those guys, one of those 5 guys would have taken or will take, the President's Cup over the Olympics. And it looks like right now the 2 guys, I think who we're pretty much locks would have to be Corey and Taylor Pendrith. And Taylor had not a great day today, but a decent day until he made a bad bogey on the last hole. But yeah, it's just going to be interesting to see if they can play loose and free a little bit. They all want to do it, and I don't know if they're just so tied up in their thoughts and they're trying not to think about it. But it's really not pretty to watch right now. They're kind of all over the place, and it is. Listen, it's a tough golf course. It's really hot. The guys who played in the afternoons, which was most of the Canadians, had a pretty good breeze going, so it made it tougher. So it's certainly not an easy course to navigate. So we're probably reading a lot into it, but I do think that President's Cup is on their mind.
Hey, Bob, you look at the decision Mike Weir is going to have. Like the top 6 in the standings get in, right? So, but there are no Canadians as it sits right now among that top 6. And I've heard Mike's, I think probably in an interview with you, I believe Mike said it would be nice if one of the Canadian guys got into the top 6 to give me a guaranteed spot instead of me having to choose Canadians, right?
Exactly right.
Yeah. So I guess if Corey could squeeze in, that Connors is at 7th right now, right? I guess is there, what are the odds of him squeezing into that top 6 before Weir has to make that decision?
Sure. I mean, it's always a case too. Don't forget of guys moving up, but also guys moving down. One of the best things that happened for Mike Weir was that Adam Scott played really well and got into 5th spot. So, I mean, he doesn't want to have to use a pick for Adam Scott. He would if he falls out. But I do think that if Corey can get in there, that makes it easier for him to get another Canadian on the team. And I think he'd love to have at least 3. And you can make a case if he's play well that you could get 4 on there. You look at some of the strengths. Like Mac Hughes is just a tremendous. Having trouble with our phones here, guys. Sorry. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just a tremendous putter and short game guy. That's what you want in match play. And I think he would be a great addition, but do you do that at the expense of the way he drives the ball? There's also, other countries you got to think about. Right now, there's no South Africans inside the top 6. Christian Bezuidenhout is the most likely guy to be chosen. He's been playing well, but you couldn't think of this team without a South African guy. We're so worried about Canadians as well, but I think you really, what Mike has said to me a couple times, and this is sort of off the record, but not off the record, but in casual conversations is, look, I'm going to pick the best team. And if it comes down to me picking between a Canadian and a non-Canadian, I'm going to go with the Canadian because they've got that excitement level that they want at Montreal.
Mm-hmm. For sure. With Bob Weeks, our TSN golf reporter. So, again, we mentioned that Scottie Scheffler, regardless of what happens this weekend, next weekend, he's going to get to East Lake. He's going to have the lead. He's going to be chasing the Tour Championship. He's 9 under for the tournament this week. He very well could win it. Wouldn't be shocking to anybody. In terms of the debate that's been ongoing the last few weeks, Schauffele or Scheffler, have you determined who has had a better season, Schauffele or Scheffler? And if you haven't, is it because you're still waiting to see how the rest of the FedEx Cup plays out?
I haven't really made a decision, and it's because I'm wishy-washy more than waiting to see. But if I was to pick right now, I would probably pick Scottie Scheffler. I think 6 wins, and I know Schauffele has 2 majors, but 6 wins, a gold medal, and don't forget his wins were the Masters, the Players, which is almost a major, and then 4 signature events, which basically means he's beaten the best field in golf 6 times this year. There's no layups, no easy ones on that roster of what he's won. So I do think I would vote for him if I had to cast my vote today. If Xander somehow won the FedEx Cup, that might change it a bit, but I still think that what Scottie Scheffler has done, I mean, don't forget he also got arrested, so that's a bonus point for him.
Yeah.
So I think
big time.
I would go with Scheffler. Yeah.
Hey, Hayes and I were talking, Bob, about a story in Golf Digest by Jaime Diaz about Jon Rahm. And I guess I haven't read the whole piece, but the crux of it, according to what I've read about it, is that, if Jon Rahm, as he looks back on his decision to take something close to $500 million from the Saudis and join LIV Golf, if he could, according to this story, I guess based on a source that seems to know, he would write the check and reverse this decision. He'd give the money back and head back to his former life before LIV Golf because it seems to have drained him of some passion, some soul, call it what you will, and it has also drained him of relevance. He hasn't been a relevant player after, at some point, not too long ago, being what many considered the best player on the planet. What do you make of that?
I talked to a guy who was pretty close to Jon Rahm at the U.S. Open this year, and he told me, and I kind of 70% think this is along the right lines. He said that Jon Rahm really thought that when he moved over to LIV, it would force the hand of the PGA Tour, and they would have a quick resolution, and they would be moving very quickly to trying to solve it. He figured he could be the catalyst towards bringing everybody together, and he didn't mean it in a kind of a way that was I'm the greatest golfer ever. He just kind of meant that okay, now LIV is they're not going to stop poaching. They're going to go after big guys. They're going to go after our best, and he thought that would force the hand, but it hasn't. I mean, they're still negotiating. These negotiations seem to be going on forever. And there's very little knowledge about what's going on and how far they are from it. Jay Monahan was talking to us this week, and he wouldn't really reveal too much. But I do think that Rahm had a feeling that maybe he could make the change go, and I think he's disappointed. I think the LIV Golf is not what he wanted. I still think he's enjoying himself. I still think he likes the competition, but I think if you gave him a choice right now, he'd probably want to play on the PGA Tour. So
is that arrogance? Is it ignorance? Like, why would Jon Rahm? Like, he's a great player. He was a big star. He won the Masters, U.S. Open. But of all the players, not Koepka, not DeChambeau, not DJ, not Phil Mickelson and his legacy, why would Rahm have thought, I'm the guy that will finally make Jay Monahan of the PGA Tour just fold and say, well, we can't possibly exist without Jon Rahm?
Right. I think it was more along the lines of, okay, here's one of our top guys, not the top guy, but let's say here's another one of our top three guys, and he's gone. They're not going to stop. They're going to go and get Scotty Scheffler. They're going to offer him $1 billion. And I think Jon Rahm I don't think it was so much about himself. I think it was more about what that transaction meant. And it meant, they're not going to, and I think I think the PGA Tour was pretty surprised when Rahm went and they made that offer because they sort of thought they had a handshake agreement, I think. And so I think that's what he was hoping for, more so than I'm the guy who's going to, everyone's going to bow down to me. It was more just, I'm a top guy, I'm one of the guys, and now one more thing is going to just tip this scale in the favor of resolution.
Well, stay cool as much as you can down there, Bob. It's going to be a fun weekend, and we appreciate you doing this. Thank you.
No problem. Take care, guys.
There's Bob Weeks, senior reporter, golf analyst, TSN, joining us here. And Jon Rahm, like I'm a fan of Rahm. I've always been a fan of watching him play.
Oh yeah,
he's got a really unique swing. He's got the Spanish flair, and yet it seems it's too bad that it's lost on LIV because nobody cares about LIV Golf. Like nobody. Like, there's individual spots where they are going on their tour where they do seem to be getting a crowd. When they go to Australia, it seems to be a pretty good attendance. I think in pockets of Europe they've done pretty well. But for the most part, at least in Canada and the States, there's just no one watches. Like no one's paying attention to when they're playing, how anyone's playing, how anyone's doing, what the team is doing, any of it. And it's too bad because Rahm's, missed this whole season where it's just been the Scotty Scheffler show, and I believe he would have got him a couple times.
I know.
I think he would have at least once. Like the way he was playing the year before, he was unbelievable.
That's what I mean. Like we were sitting here saying, like nobody's going to beat this guy.
Yeah.
Like before Scheffler really emerged, right? And it's a shame. Like no one's going to feel sorry for Jon Rahm. Yeah. Boo-hoo, you got almost $500 million.
Yeah, exactly.
400 plus.
And I'll believe it when I see it that you'd give the money back.
You'd like to have some of the money. Like you wish you would have leveraged somehow.
Right.
Leveraged the negotiation to stay on the PGA Tour and get some of that money. Right? I think is what he's probably thinking.
I guess.
But there was no way to do that. And you had to either take it or leave it. But it is in some ways a deal with the devil. Whatever you think of the Saudis, and people have opinions about the Saudis, but it's the devil of irrelevance. Right? It's the devil of you took money to go play somewhere where they show it on YouTube and some other carriers, but no one really cares. And you can't make them care. Doesn't matter. Even if Scheffler went to LIV, Scotty Scheffler couldn't make him care.
No, he couldn't.
Maybe Tiger could, but Tiger's not able to do it. Like if Tiger, and what I mean is Tiger could have maybe in his prime.
Oh, yes, I believe so.
He might have been a big enough force to make people care about LIV Golf if he was in his prime now and was transported to LIV Golf today.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, but maybe not.
It's not a guarantee.
It's not a guarantee.
Like there's been examples of great players, Bobby Hull and others that were like, I'm going to go test this other league out, and they're paying, and it was like, that league's not going to survive, man.
Yeah.
Like it is very difficult to beat out the established brand.
That's the thing.
Very tough to challenge it.
People just don't have any connection. They don't know what they're watching.
Mm-hmm.
What is the significance of this thing I'm watching now on LIV Golf? We don't know.
And most viewers in sports are very cynical to begin with. Yeah, they don't know what they're talking. What is this? It's stupid. It's not like you just get set in your ways in pro sports.
Mm.
In terms of what is right and what is wrong. And that means that's just simply from a viewing perspective. And how they label it in the team sports and the team games and all that, it just has not registered. And we're talking 2.5 years in now.
And now we're seeing, like, as much as these guys show up to the majors, and look.
And they can compete. DeChambeau won the U.S. Open.
DeChambeau won the U.S. Open.
Koepka won the PGA.
Koepka's been able to compete and make a run. But I've heard it a few times around the ranges from coaches on the PGA Tour when I've been out of tournaments, like, there is something to be said for sharpness, right? Like, and there's no better way to hone your craft than to be doing it against the best players week after week. And these LIV guys, they play golf. They play against good players, but they're not playing against the best all the time. When Bobby Weeks mentions Scotty Scheffler, not only did he win the green jacket, the players, he won 4 signature events against the best fields, right? Like, how is John Rahm, who's playing joke golf 90% of the time, supposed to come to 4 majors and compete with that?
I think it's going to be very challenging.
It's not easy.
I think it's going to be very challenging. Millen Fridays brought to you by Boston Pizza, Canada's favorite sports bar. BP serving fish bowls and ice cold pints on the patio all summer long. So grab your sunscreen and let's have ourselves a weekend. The Boston Pizza patio is calling. We'll come back with our best bets. Recap Jays Cubs today down at Wrigley. They get 2 more down at Wrigley this weekend. We'll look ahead to a busy weekend. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, today's best bets powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's a great ball game last night, man. Calgary had it, and Red Blacks, I did not end up covering the number there. Laid the points on the stamps. Did not happen. Shout out to Ottawa. Now I'm going to go the opposite way. The East Coast team again going to the West Coast. Great game tonight. Alouettes, Saskatchewan, 2 best teams in the league right now.
Oh, yeah.
The Owls are laying points on the road, but the way they've been playing all season, I think that's justified. I'm going to lay the 1.5. You don't have to pay any juice on that. Maybe even sprinkle on the money line, but you might as well lay the points. I think they win. They win by probably a field goal or more tonight.
I like it.
Montreal to continue to roll.
I like it.
In the prairies tonight. So I'm laying the points with the Alouettes against Saskatchewan tonight. CFL on TSN. Going to be a great game. Best bets powered by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app today and find thousands of ways to play. Please play responsibly. 18 plus, physically located in Ontario. As for CFL news, Nathan Rourke is likely to play. I think it's a lock. He's going to play this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
But Dave Naylor joined us on the show about an hour and a half ago and said that the Chad Kelly situation is certainly not resolved yet. And it sounds as if Randy Ambrosie and the CFL are trying to put conditions on his return and his reinstatement.
Yeah.
And they could be fairly significant conditions. And it doesn't sound as if, based on Dave's reporting, that Chad Kelly and or the Argos are ecstatic with that.
Well,
and they got to figure it out.
The league, according to Naylor, is looking at something known as a last chance agreement.
Oof.
Meaning,
one more
don't do it again.
See you later, man.
One more and you're gone. So, 2 strikes, Chad. That'll be 2 strikes and 3 strikes, and you're no longer a CFLer.
Yeah, I'm not sure what other option he's going to have if he wants to play in the CFL, though, right? Like, there'll be a fight here, but still, if the commissioner's dead set on really continuing to put conditions on him, what else are you going to do?
What are they going to do?
Yeah,
what are they going to do?
That's the question. What are you going to do about it?
He's put himself in this position.
He has. All right, Dave, great stuff, man.
Great seeing you.
Seeing you as always. There's Dave Feschuk of the Toronto Star. Thanks to everyone behind the scenes for helping out. We appreciate it. Everyone for tuning in today. We appreciate that. Radio, TV, podcast, web. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy your weekends. We're back Monday at 4 p.m. We'll chat then.